What's up, guys? Today we got a fantastic question: the Pixel 7 Pro versus the Pixel 9a here. And this is a mid-range phone versus an old flagship. And basically the question is, should I upgrade from the 7 Pro to the 9a? And it's actually a pretty good question because the Pixel 9a has been, to me, pretty impressive. I do like the phone, and I think this comparison actually makes a lot of sense here. So let's go ahead and dive in. So first off, the material is not cheap on the 9a, even though it's a mid-range phone. It does have a plastic back, but it does not feel cheap at all. So it does retain the metal sides, and overall it's a little bit more comfortable to hold because it's just simply smaller. So people with smaller hands, you'll like the 9a. And yeah, the design on the 9a has a completely flat camera bump here, so that is pretty cool. So if you're somebody who types on the table, you know, it's not going to bounce around. I don't think the 7 bounces around anyway because of the bump either. So that there is pretty much going to be the same. And you have a full glass and metal design, and both of these phones are IP68 dust and water resistant as well. So hardware is still pretty solid on this 9a. Let's talk about the displays here. So of course you're going to get a bigger panel on the 7 Pro. It's an LTPO AMOLED display. It's 120 Hz HDR10+, 1500 nits peak brightness, and at 6.7 inches 1440p. 512 for the PPI. It does have a curved glass on here, which you may or may not like. With the 9a, it has a POLED display, but there is HDR, but there's no HDR10+, unfortunately. It's 120 Hz, and then it is very bright. It's much brighter than 7 Pro at 2700 nits at 1080p 422 for the PPI. Both displays look great. You can see the big thing here is that the 9a just has some very chunky bezels on the top and bottom. But yeah, as far as display quality, both displays look great. But again, like, you do have, you know, some trade-offs here. The lack of HDR10+ on the 9a, and then you also have a 1440p panel on the 7 Pro here, so you can enjoy, you know, watching 2K content. But besides that, I don't think the average person will really notice like a difference. If you really look at both displays side by side, you can't really tell a difference. And also the color profile looks exactly the same as well too. So yeah, I think the display on the 9a is pretty solid, honestly. Like, the thick bezels can be a little bit of an eyesore, you know, depending on if you're coming from a 7 Pro, but both displays are pretty good. Guys, so we got the Tensor G4 processor versus the Tensor G2 processor. Both models are 128 gigs and 8 gigs of RAM. And we did get extended software support for the Pixel 7 Pro, which is great, so you can keep the phone for a lot longer. What you notice is that you do have a slight bump up when it comes to your single-core, multi-core, and also you will have better graphics performance as well. When it comes to general performance, there's not a gigantic, like, bump up in speed. Like, yeah, the performance is going to be a little bit better on the 9a when it comes to graphics and probably like getting into games, but you won't notice too much of a difference. What you will notice here is that the Pixel 9a gets nowhere near as hot as the Pixel 7 Pro. So that is like probably one of the biggest performance jumps here, is that you don't get like that, you know, really warm feel on the 7 Pro. So, but as you guys can see, like, opening applications, animations feel pretty much the same. I think the 9a might be a little bit quicker. Yeah, so it's for sure a little bit quicker. But I don't think anyone would really notice like too much of a difference with these two phones. Okay. When it comes to graphic performance here, we're pretty much getting the same settings for PUBG. But like I said, if you do play games like Genshin and stuff like that, you do have better settings. But we cannot play 90 frames on either of these phones. But PUBG runs fine. But again, I think the 9a is going to be the better gaming device here, simply because, one, we do have a newer chip, but also it doesn't get as hot as the 7 Pro as well. So overall, for longer periods of gaming, it's going to be a much better phone. But the Pixel 7 has never really, I've never really had an issue with this phone with gaming, you know, playing Call of Duty Mobile and PUBG. It does a pretty good job at running at 60 frames. So if you're just kind of more of a lighter gamer, this is perfectly fine. But if you do play for hours, then you definitely want to go with the 9A for sure. Let's check out the speakers at max volume. We'll start with the 9. Yeah, I think I would personally prefer the Pixel 7 Pro speaker. They just sound a little bit cleaner and a little bit more well balanced. And it's not to say the 9A has a bad speaker at all. I just prefer the cleaner sound coming out of here. But the speakers are not bad at all on the 9A. Now, both phones actually have an optical fingerprint sensor, so you basically get the same performance. So I don't have an issue with it. It's not as good as, you know, something like an ultrasonic. It's a little bit slower, but it definitely works. No. All right, so let's talk about the cameras. The Pixel 9A has a 48 megapixel standard, a 13 megapixel ultra wide, and there's no dedicated telephoto lens, so that means all the zoom is going to be digital on here. Now, you also can shoot in 4K 60 with a 13 megapixel selfie that shoots in 4K 30. Now, the 7 Pro has a 50 megapixel standard, a 48 megapixel periscope telephoto, 5 times zoom, and then we have 30 times max zoom. You also have a 12 megapixel ultra wide. We have the ability to shoot in 4K 60 as well, and then we also have a 10.8 selfie camera, and that shoots in 4K 60. As far as battery life goes, to my surprise, the Pixel 9a's battery life has been extremely good. I've been very impressed with the battery life on here. And not just the screen on time, the standby time has been very good. This phone actually has a massive battery in it for its size. It's got a 5,100 milliamp hour battery. It's got 23 watt charging with 7.5 watt wireless charging. So it's very impressive when it comes to screen on time, and you know, plus the G4 processor is a lot more efficient than the Pixel 7 Pro's processor. So we're just getting overall better screen on time and standby time. Now the 7 Pro's battery, it's a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, and then we also do have 23 watt charging and 23 watt wireless charging, so it does charge a lot faster wirelessly. And reverse wireless charging is here. That's something that the 9A does not have. So overall, the 7 Pro's battery is not bad, but it's definitely nowhere near as good as the 9A goes. So it's a very interesting kind of comparison here. Is it enough to now go with a new mid-range phone over an old flagship? Is this enough to convince you guys to upgrade for this price of about $499? So what do you guys think?